Hi, folks. You are watching and listening to another edition of Sipping Off the Cuff on Tequila Aficionado Media on all of our channels and networks. I'm Mike Morales here in the armpit of the San Gabriel Valley in Southern California. That gentleman out there is
Rick Levy in the San Pasqual Valley in Southern California.
Rick, and I have just been waxing poetic about this particular line. This is the Cierto Reserve collection, okay? Not to be confused with the private collection, which Rick still has a lot of. I've had to I've had to hoard what's left of mine because I honestly never thought that we would get it anymore. Sometimes there are certain batches like with Ocho, you just kind of hang on to it and you go, one day, I'll replenish this or I'll never see this again, right? So that's what I'm doing now because in the old days, Rick, when I was coming up and Herradura was still making real tequila and Chinaco was still making real tequila and you know those were like my glass ceilings. The bottles were at $40 a piece and it's like I don't know if I can afford this, right? Because I'm not making a whole lot of money. $40 was my glass ceiling. Um, but I often tell people I wish I had known what I know now back then, that the tequila is going to change. You'll never see these iterations again, even though they're affordable, at the time, maybe not, but
Yeah.
$40 now is like, yeah, all day long. You just you don't foresee the evolution of the industry.
Hmm.
And that's my short-sightedness because I'm not a collector. Most collectors probably saw that, and that's why they have these hordes of the olive oil bottle of El Tesoro or the other expressions. Yeah. Oh, you mean like you? Yeah. Yeah. I not me. I thought, well, it's always going to be like this because this is like my only bottle I can afford, right? And so I drink it all. So now I'm putting stuff away because there's no telling when I'm ever going to get some more. And now they went ahead and sent us this. And I said to myself, what's the difference? What? So anyway, Rick and we dissected what the difference was in the Blanco review. Go back and check the Blanco review of the Cierto Reserve collection, okay, Blanco, because we
Yeah,
really,
private collection was
right,
the original.
Excuse the private collection. Well, no, but even the Reserve collection, we break down what the difference was between
Right.
the old version of the old,
Or the
I say
main
the
line
original,
versus the reserve line.
right, exactly. So, because they are two separate, they're two separate lines of expressions. Okay. It's not the same thing. I thought maybe the PR company made a mistake. Nope, they didn't. They made the right choice by sending us the new stuff. So here we are. Uh, we're gonna die. Oh, look at this. Oh my God. Look at this. That's just gorgeous. Look at that. It's got like Coca-Cola bubbles. I mean, and these are naturally occurring, okay? It's not like
Yeah.
my knowledge, they probably have this technology at this distillery, but to my knowledge, they're not oxygenating any of these tequilas. I could be wrong, but I have not read that they have done anything like that to the Cierto line. Okay.
We have not come across anything like that either.
So I'm going to say that they're not doing it, that they want a more of a fuller body. And I'm going to use a Stossel. Actually, I'm going to use a Stossel Glencairn. Glencairn is a company that owns this glass, but Stossel makes the glass to Glencairn specs, and you're using a Stossel
Yes,
Jarrito.
Docile Jarrito.
Okay, so here we go. Uh, we 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 love anything coming out of Stossel because Riedel, get out of here. Um, so anyway, oh shit, sorry, a little too much, but that's okay. I promise I won't waste it. I probably will spit out the first one though, because that's who I am. I, I, you know, we've got a few of these to go. We have one more. Rick, however, has swallowed every single one of his samples. So here we go. Um, I like the color on this because it's not as deep. You know, I don't know, Rick. You tell me. You're getting yours looks a little bit lighter than mine in the on camera. I don't know if it's the Glencairn,
Yeah, no, I think it's I don't know. I think it's just the lighting or
just the
something.
lighting.
It's an amber.
Okay, good. Is you're getting amber? That's good. Then not that's what
Yeah.
I'll okay. Because on my end, it looks almost as light as it almost looks like a pale gold, like what the Reposado looked like.
Yeah. I think there might be like some lighting effects happening in the conference system here,
Okay,
or
could
maybe
be.
it's something with
Maybe
the
it's your office.
camera.
Oh, there you go.
Maybe it's the
Yeah, it looks
office. I
darker.
don't know, but
Actually, you do that again. It looks darker. Yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah. See?
it's an amber.
Okay. Well, again,
Mm,
the legs and tears on this are stunning. And I got to say that when we look at legs and tears, folks, what we're anticipating is what it's going to feel like in your mouth, the mouth feel. That's what we call it.
right.
The body, the
Structure,
structure.
body.
And it's like when before I had a vocabulary, I used to say it tastes chewy. I would say that about the Blancos, and I still say that occasionally. I know a gentleman I've known for years, and he uses the term beefy when he goes into the Blanco. He's like it's beefy, It's like it's got all the elements of the agave because generally speaking, when you get a beefy flavor profile in a Blanco, it's because it's been in the ground for a while. That's just lovely.
So slow. And it's like they're coming in waves. There was an initial set of legs and tears, and now I'm getting a second wave.
It's just taking its own sweet time too.
Yeah.
I mean, you know how
It's like
you put
waiting for honey or something.
you put it very poetically, just beautifully in the Blanco review. And you should go see the Blanco review of this
I don't
reserve
remember what I
collection
said.
because he really you said something about I forget exactly what you said, but it was so romantic. It was like, oh my God, that's just beautiful. And that was just the Blanco. I mean, this oh you a constellation of tears is what you called
Or
it.
pearls, I think.
Pearls, yes.
They're like hanging on the glass like stars in a desert sky or something.
Look at this guy, man. How
But
can
I'm not getting that as much with
I'm
this
getting it?
one.
Look, mira, right here, mira. I'm getting it all on my glass, just like the way you had it on your Blanco.
Oh,
Yeah, it's like, the further up you go on the glass, the tears just don't go anywhere. And no,
yeah.
that's not additives, it's not glycerin, it's not any of that. Okay. These guys don't do any of that stuff.
Well, if I understand correctly, glycerin is produced naturally in the process. It's when they do added glycerin
Exactly.
that
Right.
yeah,
And then
but
again, that is allowed by the normas. Don't get all bent out of shape, all you AFA people. No, don't, or ADA, I don't know, whatever the hell it's called now. It's no longer in existence anyway, so it doesn't matter. Um,
but I
but
think in Enrique's process, he has these techniques that he uses to retain more of the original body so that it's not
yes,
lost in the distillation process.
right, not lost in translation. Okay.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, and I say this about guys like Felipe Camarena, Carlos Camarena, anybody who's anything coming out of Las Americas, 1480 that's organic. These guys are agave growers first and foremost.
Yeah.
Distillation is
Well,
secondary.
if you think of pulque has a very thick body, a very
Oh
creamy
yeah, well
texture.
it's like it's half fermenting. I mean, they have
Yeah.
a process where they suck it out of the plant from a bamboo straw and throw it in a pitcher. Well, I got news for you. When you're a judge at a show and you start spitting out all your samples and you have this one huge spit bucket, by the middle of the day, it's fermenting again. Okay. That's exactly what pulque is. Okay. That's what pulque does. because you're just spitting out the sap. You're collecting it, putting it in a pitcher, and putting it in a container, and it's just going to start to ferment. That's just what it does. Okay, what are we getting? This is a beautiful nose. Oh
It
my
really is.
goodness. You know that dried fruit you were talking about? But it's not dry. I'm still getting its ripe fruit. I'm getting ripe stone fruit. Plums,
More of a cherry.
I'm getting okay, plums, cherries, I'm getting plums.
Mm,
Um um what else am I getting? It's a stone fruit, but it's plums, cherries. I don't want to go raisins, not yet.
no.
Wow. And it's very fruity, much fruitier than I expected. By the way, folks, if you're asking about the alcohol, minimal on any of these. On any of these. It's not like it's coming up and singeing your nose hairs or your eyebrows. It's
No.
not doing any of that.
If you do get that, it's probably because you have just opened the bottle.
Right.
Because a lot of bottles will do that when you first open it. You might
Yep.
get some alcohol heat on your first pour, but there's a reaction that happens and kind of changes the bottle after it's been opened. And
Well, it's mixed in with the oxygen. I know that Rick, you mentioned that you had opened your bottles the night before. I had actually opened some of these prior, a few days prior. Um, and so,
obviously,
well, yeah, but not as bad as I have been. I have to say it's been, and I haven't dissected anything. It's not like these are my tools. Okay. I've never poured any of these in any of the Jarritos or the Glencairns. I mean, I was just using a snifter, which is what I like drinking stuff out of. I drink out of a snifter. I don't even use a reel anymore because it's just not the same.
no, don't
And
use a
and these are
real.
my tools, so I don't pull these out because then I got to wash them again, right? My snifter I can leave on my desk, and I go back to it the next day and go, wow, that's all barrel, or whatever, you know.
I'll do that too.
This is deeper. This is a really deep, rich aroma, and it's less spicy than the reposado. It's to me, it's more denser, more fruity. It's almost like a fruit pechuga. Like if this were a mezcal, it would be like a fruit pechuga. Am I going overboard
Interesting.
with that?
Well, I don't know. You've got I think you've got a wider basis of reference. You're doing these things every day.
Well, yeah, but you and I've done some really great mezcals together too. So,
Yeah. I'm wondering if I'm getting, I don't know, maybe a little bit of leather.
okay, that's a possibility, but I'm not sensing. Usually, if I get leather, I get tobacco on the back end. It's like the last thing I get. I'm not getting any of that. But you're right.
Mm.
Leather could be. Yeah, I'll buy that. I'll buy leather, but it's evolving in the glass again. So
I don't know. It's reading to me like, just really warm, buttery agave, baked agave,
there you go.
which, for an añejo is pretty impressive.
Well, it's like a hot buttered rum. You've had that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I bet this would taste really good warmed up. Like in a brandy sniffer, you know how you warm it up with a candle, you tilt it on one end and let it warm up a little bit.
I have not done that.
Oh, you
I'm not a brandy drinker, so
well then
I
you
haven't had
haven't
the
you
experience.
well, I me neither, but you haven't lived until you've done, you know, brandy. Yeah, but it's got to be a much bigger snifter. It's got to be like a globe snifter. It's got to be
Mm.
bigger than eight ounces. It's got to be one of those big ones because you don't want the glass to burst. You don't want it to heat up so much. I mean, there's a science to heating stuff up like that. So I want to dive in. What do you want?
All right,
Let's
let's
dive in.
go.
Here we go. You know what's interesting? It's much to me, now that I spit out my first sample, it's by the way, and this is something that we didn't cover like in the Blanco and Reposado, and I want to stress the lip and gum numbness, amazing on all of
Mm,
these. This one turned into more like a hot cinnamon. This one is really spicier, like a pepper of some sort.
yeah.
Okay. Now the Blanco did not give me like green pepper. I didn't get any of that. It was like pepper.
No.
Okay. So but the lip and gum numbness, spectacular, right where you want it. So this was very peppery for me up front. I'm not sure if that's what is that what you got?
Yeah, no, nice. It's yeah, big presence of pepper. And you know that sweet, warm, buttery agave. There's a lot going on with the wood here.
Yeah.
Um, I
I
think
got
should I talk about the wood now?
tell me about the wood. Tell me about your wood.
So so in the P in the POS, they talk
By the way,
about this as
POS
being
folks, I know we're talking in jargon.
point of
POS
sale
is a
material.
sale. It's a
Yeah.
brochure, the neck talker, the shelf talker, the stuff you see at Total Wine. Okay, that's what it is. A
Marketing.
sell sheet.
Yeah. So they're calling this a barrel forward blend of alembic and column distilled añejos made from estate grown Highlands agave, married with a rare batch of alembic distilled añejo tequilas, plural, aged in a combination of French oak, dark oak, and white oak ex-Canadian rye whiskey casks.
That explains the bitterness. That explains the bitterness at the back end. That's what we
Mhm.
couldn't pinpoint. You said,
Yeah,
would you say smokiness? No, or did you say that on the repo? No, you didn't that on the
might have been in the
you said
repo.
smokiness.
I don't
I
know.
wouldn't go smoke, but I would go rye. And the last time I had a tequila that was aged in rye barrels was Luna Azul. They came out with a line that they only sent me one bottle, and I know I've got it in storage here in my locker in my storage unit. And I saved it because it's the rye really does add a weird profile. I'm not a whiskey drinker, but rye really has that interesting bitterness to it, that graininess that you don't get from any of the other whiskeys that are made from corn or whatever. But I get that. I get that. I get the rye. That's what
Right.
this is.
It's sort of like how in the Reposado, they had married it with something that had been in red wine barrels. And that was sort of like the X factor.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah. So
uh,
this is the so we're talking about the X-Men. We're both a couple of we're both a couple of Marvel nerds, okay? So just bear with us. Have you been watching it, Agatha?
I have been watching Agatha, yeah.
Okay, me too. I like it. I think it's cool. You know, it's it's all witchcraft and stuff. But anyway, that's beside the point. Well, go watch some of the other fanboys on Marvel fanboys on YouTube because I do. Um, on the nose, it's sweeter, but you're right. On the finish, it's that rye finish, and rye gives a little bit of grainy and bitterness. It's kind of like a blend of both. It's really unusual. I mean, I get where
Mm.
people either hate or they either love or hate rye whiskeys. I could go either way. I don't know.
Yeah, before I got into tequila, I was more of a bourbon drinker and never really
Do they age
experienced
bourbon in rye
rye.
barrels? I'll have to ask you. I know it's a stupid
No,
question
I
because
don't
I'm not a
know.
whiskey drinker, but you tell
I
me.
didn't I didn't I didn't get into to whiskeys the way I've gotten into tequilas. I haven't done the
Okay.
analysis.
Well, I know bourbon has to be barreled and aged in a certain way, and Tennessee whiskey has to be done in a
Mm,
certain way. So, I think Jim is the only one that could explain it to me. Well, Jim and Eric, because they have a much wider palate than you and me do, so you and I do.
mm,
Um, but I get that makes sense to me because there's that telltale something or other you can't pinpoint, and unless you've had rye whiskey or a tequila that's been aged in a rye barrel, you'll get it. But that makes
And
sense.
you said it comes across as a kind of a bitterness.
To me, it's like a grainy bitterness
I was wondering if
on
it
the
was
back end.
like a bitter coffee or something, because I don't have the
Yeah,
experience with rye.
it doesn't have like it doesn't have a maybe yeah, okay, I'll go bitter coffee, but it doesn't have the tobacco aftertaste that you get on some of the extra añejos. Okay,
Mm.
this is not that deep, but it's certainly unusual. It's not a it's a that's why I say I in my experience when I talk to whiskey drinkers, they either love rye whiskey or they hate it. They can't stand it. So you get that love and hate thing. And I actually like it in tequila if it's done correctly. And
This is
obviously,
very nice. And the nose just keeps developing.
yeah, and it's but the nose is sweeter. You know what that I
Hmm.
didn't expect to get the rye until I ingested it. That's when I said that there was like at the back end on the sides of my tongue right here. I get that bitterness, and that's the rye. That's that rye bitterness.
Like when I was first starting out in tequilas, I loved repos that had like this, the sweetness on the nose. So
Wow.
this is an 18-month añejo.
And it's got a long finish too. And yes, it finishes dry and somewhat bitter. Now this I could blend with a cigar. I could pair it with a cigar easily. And it could be an even bolder cigar. I wouldn't even go mellow. I would go a little bit bolder. I
Yeah, I can
could even
stand
pair it with
that.
a good Dominican cigar, which to me are bolder, or something out of Honduras, which is bolder to me also.
I could just sit here all night with my nose in the glass.
Well, now I am getting well, there's a little bit more alcohol in this one now. Now that it's evolving out of the glass. And again, these all of these so far, the Blanco Reposado and this Añejo have been evolving in the glass. So it's gonna
Yeah.
be you're you go back to it, you could let it sit there and air out some more and just do this with it and swirl it. You can do that with the Glencairn or the Jarrito. That's what they're made for. So that it airs itself with blancos or with the air and come back to it and it's another layer has exposed itself
Yeah. You
or
got to spend some time with it.
revealed itself. By the way, folks, what's the price point on this one?
MSRP is 249, but it's available at Old Town for 220.
Wow, that's actually a good
So
price.
another $30 discount at Old
Another
Town.
$30 discount. And you know what? Look at the legs and tears. It's almost as if the more I swirl it, the more legs and tears appear.
Yeah.
This is amazing. This is a uh, wow. Of the three so far, this is the one you want to pair with a cigar. And I wouldn't go light. I would go bold, which is rare. Usually, depending on the brand that we're tasting, I would go, a lighter leaf, like a Connecticut wrapper or something out of Nicaragua, but this one will stand up to a much bolder cigar. And I don't say that very often about some añejos and extra añejos, but this one, I'm tempted now. Now I gotta go order some more cigars. I'm running low. Of course, I'm lucky if I have an hour to carve out on a weekend where I could just sit and have a cigar. Because you gotta plan for these things. It's not like, yeah,
Right.
I don't know about some of these guys that have like two cigars a day. It's like, where do you find the time? I'm lucky I get an hour. But this one, I'm gonna have to play with this one because I really do think this is your after dinner, your cigar, your
Yeah.
your
And
digestif.
I can't get over, the body on these, the
Yeah.
structure to them. Because usually by the time we get to the añejo, it's become a lot more thin. It has a lot less body to it.
Right.
And this, it's reminding me of like an old reposado or something.
Mm, mm,
It's creamy. You got the baked agave, butteriness,
mm. Oh my God. Brandon
and
Brum's
then just
nominee.
all of these other aspects from all the different kinds of wood that they're using.
Well, yeah, but it's like you said at the beginning. Go back to this Blanco Reserve Collection um, review for this line. Rick said that each one of these is not, it's not a logical progression, because Rick and I are used to, even me and Alex and a lot of the other tasters, a lot of the TJs that we have, we're used to a natural progression. Each one of these was different. They're like a whole separate animal. Every
I
single,
might have to go back and rethink that though, because now I'm wondering, because as we're reading the POS after we've had our taste, they're talking about how it was one thing and then married with another. So now I'm wondering if they are taking, if the line is the private collection, the original line,
right.
and then they're marrying it with, the something extra special.
Well, logically it makes sense. Okay,
Yeah.
because the recipes and what the original Cierto line was, which is the what was it, the private collection? I'm gonna get these.
Yeah.
That's their base. Okay, and so if you and I are investors in this brand, and we would go, okay, we know this guy has a bank, a vault of stuff that he's aging, right? We talked about
Plural.
the vault, and we got money to burn. How do we make our line even better? And so logically, you think, okay, well, let's take this basic recipe, which we're going to crank out and crank out and crank out, in our way. I mean, I don't mean like in a maquiladora kind of way. I mean, you know, we're gonna keep this recipe the same. How do we make it even more special? So it makes sense to me that they would start taking this base recipes and what a challenge for Enrique Fonseca and his staff. Let's make this even better. How do we do that? Well, wow. And
I
so
don't, I might take issue with the term better because the main line is really good
yeah, yeah.
and I really love it. But this is more like um I like the way, you're saying make it more special.
Okay.
They're doing something special with it that is, that makes it different and a new experience.
Well, they have to, because again, there's no logical progression for any of these. I mean, you could like right now, if you're a cigar dude, you could just go for the añejo. Just go there. You're looking for something to pair with your bold Dominican cigars, that's your jam right there. If you're a Blanco person and you just like something that maybe you like martinis, you could go for that Blanco all day long. Stick an olive in it and you're good to go, you know?
In our review of the private collection, I just looked at some of my notes. You said that the Añejo was definitely a cigar tequila as
Yeah,
well
yeah.
in the original line.
Well, and now it's even more so, because that añejo, probably you wouldn't go as bold. This one would stand up to the boldness you're looking for. If you're one of those guys that just really like a in your face cigar, this is the tequila that can stand up to it. So I think that's probably the only logical thing I can come up with, is that they took the original recipe and said, let's make it grander. Okay, let's make it grander. And they did, and it said, okay, let's add $30 to it. Final price. And here they are, Uh I think it's spectacular. I
Yeah.
promise nominee. You can't go wrong with this. Uh um each one of these, they serve a purpose for whoever and it's beautiful. You don't have to, if you don't, if you're not an añejo guy, you're a reposado guy, go with that repo
Yeah.
all day long. If you're into martinis and you're into, you know, that blanco would even stand up to an ice cube if you wanted to. I wouldn't mix these. Would you mix any of
Yeah.
these? I wouldn't make cocktails out of them.
No.
These are
At
sipping.
this at these prices, I wouldn't be able to bring myself to mix
No,
with it.
no. I mean, you could if you were in Vegas and you were a high roller, of course. But outside of that, um, I wouldn't screw with these at all. If you're a sipper, a serious sipper, and a student, a nerd like, you know, our Catadork over there, uh, I would just sip these and see where you could play with them and what you could do with them and how you would enjoy it. Because in this case, like you were mentioning through the whole line so far, each one of these is a different experience. That's what they were
Yeah.
going for. And, you know, kudos to them. They did. I know there was a lot of hype with the original line, and I tell the story about how I met the founder and what I said to him because I had a bone to pick with him. And you guys can go watch the original 4 reviews we did of the first line. Um, but they did it. They outdid themselves. Where
Yeah.
it maybe not them, but Don Enrique Fonseca, he and his staff just blew us away. Amazing. Anyway, that's our take on Cierto. This is the Añejo, the Reserve collection. Tell us what you're doing with it. Are you spending the money on it? Do you dare blend it into something? What do you do? I wouldn't. I would just. What kind of notes are you getting? Because constantly, I could go back to this stuff, and later on, I very often do go back to these samples that I don't finish, and there's something else coming up. Something else evolves, and you could spend just your time nosing it. But what are you doing with it? Whatever you do, subscribe to our website and the newsletter. Subscribe to this channel. Find us on Instagram. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Twitter. And whatever you do, folks, tomar sabiamente.
Sip wisely.